This is the Relevant Podcast.
It's episode 1202, and it's the Relevant Podcast here in Orlando, fighting a literal hurricane. I'm your host, Cameron Strang. Joining me from Loverland, Virginia, is Jesse Carey.
Hello, hello.
From Nashville, our managing editor, downtown Emily Brown.
Hey, y'all.
Yeah, literally, this is our dedication to you people. You think the post office delivers in all kinds of weather. We podcast in all kinds of weather. There is a hurricane outside my house right now. So if my power goes out or my roof collapses, just know this. I have a faith in eternity that we will see each other again one day.
Oh, my goodness.
I forgot about that.
So don't mourn me. Don't mourn me.
This is how I know it's serious. In some other projects I'm working on, there's another recording scheduled for mid-morning with someone that works at NASA at Cape Canaveral, which was canceled for the hurricane. NASA's canceling interviews, but not Cameron. That's how serious this is.
And I'm way closer to the hurricane than NASA is. They're not getting touched on that side of the state. It is the funniest thing. I saw a meme going around last night that and it highlighted all the counties that were canceling school today, and it canceled up in Jacksonville, the Northeast, and then it showed the track of the hurricane, which is going 700 miles away or whatever. Yeah. And they're like, of all the counties, these children need education. And they're like, why are you canceling the schools in Jacksonville? So those East Coasters are just taking a day off. They're probably out bowling. They're probably just having a good old time, enjoying a day off in the middle of the week for no reason.
Well, I'm glad you brought up bowling and potentially being stuck in your home for a while because
Wait, did you set up a bowling alley in your house? What are you talking? Where are you going with this?
I'll tell you exactly where I'm going with it because, when I first moved to Florida years ago, my first month there, 3 hurricanes hit in consecutive, back to back to back, and much of the city. And when Orlando or Central Florida closes down, it's serious. Wait a second,
I have a question. What year was that? Was that 04?
Yeah, it was 04.
Did you come over for board games on one of them?
Yes. Yeah. And even just getting to your house was harrowing.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, this was so early. We were watching Family Guy on DVD.
Oh, yeah, I remember. So that year, prior to that year, Orlando hadn't been hit by a hurricane since the 60s. We never get hit. It'll nick the coast and then go up to North Carolina or something like that. You know what I mean? It never comes across the state. So when the first one was coming, they're like, oh, it's coming to Orlando. And we're like, everybody freaked out and over-prepared, and they all went to Home Depot, crazy over-prepared. And then it was a rainstorm. It was nothing, right? And so then 3 weeks later, another hurricane's beelining it for Orlando. Well, then all of us realized by the time they get to us, they die down. That's no big deal. The second one destroyed the city. I mean, when you flew over the city for the next 2 years, it was nothing but blue tarps because all the roofs were blown off.
Oh my gosh.
And then by the third one, we're just Lord wants to eliminate Orlando from the map of this earth. What is going on? It was 3 in a row after never getting them.
There was, and again, I know I should be careful talking about suffering from natural disasters, but I was so hungry. There was nowhere to eat out. Right? There were no restaurants. Only a couple Chinese food restaurants would open for a little bit. And then the police would come and on the sidewalk, they'd be like, you guys got to get out of here. We're just waiting for Chinese food. And they're like, no, you can't do this. You can't be standing out here in the strip mall. But I remember I saw people gathering at Jason's Deli, and I walked in and with a couple of roommates because it was in walking distance of where I lived. And we're just wandering the streets trying to find some person that would sell us food. And we walked in there and we're like, whew, thank God they're making these prepackaged lunches, And I go up there and they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I need one of these boxes. They're like, these are for first responders and emergency workers. These aren't for people. And I was like, listen to me. I am living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 4 guys, and we've been stranded for 2 weeks. We are eating out of a jar of pasta. That is all we have left. We are not experienced grocery shoppers. We did not prepare for this. Please give us one of these tuna fish sandwiches, which they did not, and asked us to leave. And then we got kicked out of the Chinese food restaurant. It was harrowing. It was.
We weren't ready for it because it just never hits us. We didn't know what to do. And then every hurricane since then, everybody's either been completely uninterested or completely overprepared. And it's like we're not a coastal city where it's like, it's coming right for you. It's going to be bad. Here's what you do. Like for us, it's like, you have no idea by the time it gets here. The last time we didn't have any last year, but the 2 years ago, we got hit pretty bad. And it was, I live on a lake and it flooded the lake. It flooded all the streets. I live in an older part of town where there's like brick streets and bungalows and stuff like that. And like these streets are like 100 and something years old, and all the lakes overflowed, and those bricks lifted up and floated away. Like entire streets just washed away. And it's just like, oh, we weren't ready for that either. Like we don't know what to do here. We're in Florida. We don't know what to do with hurricanes. So anyway, we just podcast and pretend like it's not going to happen.
I know, but I do have a little. So the other week we had a stint of bad weather. Ironically, I mean, it wasn't hurricanes; it's just a lot of rain, and so you couldn't go outside. It's a very lovely time of year here; everyone's outside all the time, and we were kind of stuck inside for days. All the kids' sports stuff got canceled. We had like a cookout that got canceled, and so everyone was just bummed because you're just kind of hanging in. So Dana, my wife, and I were like, "Let's take the kids and go bowling." Okay, just surprise them. Just get out.
So the whole city shut down, but bowling's open.
Well,
it was just raining. It was
just raining. I'm just saying outdoor activities. And we're very outdoor. Cameron, you've hung out at our house. Like we're very outside people, And
we eat dinner inside and then go for an hour-long walk outside after dinner. Like, why are we walking? Why are we
pretty much every night we do stuff like that.
It's very lovely.
But everyone was crawling up the walls, right? So we're like, let's go bowling. And we went to one of those places now that has like, laser tag and arcade and, the indoor ropes course, and they have the bowling with the big TV screens. When's the last time either of you guys been bowling real quick? Quick heat check around the board.
I went 6 months ago. And then prior to that, I'd say we go like every year or two, usually when we travel. Like me and Cohen will go on trips, and it's like, well, I can't take him to a pool hall. I can't, how do you kill time? We'll find a little, like inner city bowling alley or something.
Emily, when's the last time?
It's been a couple years, but it was when I was a youth leader. We did like a youth night out at a bowling alley. Now, the one thing about small town Texas bowling alleys is they were built in probably the 70s and they haven't been updated once.
Those are my favorite. Those are awesome.
Yeah, because on the one end of the spectrum, you have like your Lucky Strikes, which are like kind of nightlife meets bowling alley, which, not going to lie, if you go with grown-ups, it's pretty fun. Like,
pretty fun. Yeah.
On a late night.
It's a great date. It's a great date. And like late night date thing.
Yeah. Lucky Strikes. And then you have like this place is like just below that is the Apex, where they have the big TV screens that are at the back wall and different sports on and stuff, which, by the way, this was like a weeknight after work. So there's no game. And we're kind of in the dry spell of sports. If football's not on, like baseball is kind of teetering off. There's no basketball. So Cameron, you know what they were playing? Is for some reason, the only thing they had to play, like it wasn't like Around the Horn or ESPN. It was Inside the NBA each year from the 90s, starting at 92. And it was best of Inside the NBA with Ahmad Rashad through the 90s. So they had a whole Magic segment, obviously.
Awesome.
But also like dude, it was great programming. Even though I couldn't hear it, I was just like, oh, that looks like a fun segment they're doing. They did a whole Barkley one. Anyway. So I'm there watching retro NBA, throwing the ball. I end up seeing some people that we know that came in thinking the same thing. And I'm killing it, guys. I am. You guys know my theory of total mastery, right?
Yeah.
Wait,
give me
I actually don't think I know this.
Okay. You give me a month solely dedicated, as if I'm dedicated myself to like a job. So minimum of like 8 hours a day. Like I get up, start my day, have my coffee, and I do this one thing all day until dinner time, right? For 30 days. Basically any target sport, I achieve total mastery. So we're talking darts, talking bowling, like a free throw. I could go for 100 for 100 on free throws if you gave me a month. Like I can achieve
field goal kicking.
Field goal kicking, exactly. I might need 60 days because I got to get the muscles built for that,
Yeah,
but
true.
I would say if it's extra point, absolutely. If it's just chip shots after a touchdown,
Yeah.
No question. I would say, putting in golf, total mastery can be achieved 30 days of just
30
solid.
days.
I'm Olympic level. That is my goal. and I got confirmed at that bowling. It was like, dude, I'm tweaking the technique throughout the hour, and I'm only half even caring, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm socializing, I'm eating, I'm transfixed on retro NBA documentaries with no sound on. And I'm not even trying, and I'm knocking strikes. And I'm like, dude, if you gave me 30 days here, I'm probably one of the best bowlers in the state. I'm not saying I'm going to the Olympics, but I'm close. But my whole point is too, bowling is such an underrated activity. People are only going a couple times a year. If they start building houses with one lane in the basement, it couldn't be that expensive. I'm telling you, bowling is poised for a comeback. It is fun. It is social. Anyone can do it. It's so much better than stuff like golf that takes all day and is super expensive, right? You can go. There's no reason people aren't going bowling on their lunch breaks. That's the other thing I was thinking. Why aren't people just like, all right, I'll see you guys after lunch. Going to go, throw a game, right? Like it is the perfect activity.
I kind of like that, like, because I feel like some people, you go to golf, like, I'm just going to go, hit a few balls, whatever. Like that's like a business, like they'll take business partners out or, like for golf. I love the idea of taking them out to a bowling alley instead and like getting greasy pizza, having to buy shoes that a million other people have worn.
I think that's when it died, was COVID. The idea of sticking your fingers into dirty holes. I think that was like, it lost its appeal.
The world's moved on, but even then, it was teetering out. No, it was like you do it every once in a while. But look at other hobbies. Okay, fishing, golf. I don't know what are the hobbies even people have anymore. Rollerblading, skating is making a comeback. I see a lot of roller skates these days. But like the hobbies people have, I just feel like if you were just chart them and be like, hey, if I was in town, Cameron, Emily. We can go fishing. We can go golfing. We can go blading. We can name any other of these achievable. And bowling top of the list. And we're all going to have a great time. And
you're sitting down for most of it. Social. The problem is with your 30 days of mastery, though, with bowling is I think you experienced a little beginner's luck because you weren't focused on it. You were loose and you were flowing and having a good time. But I think if you were like, okay, I have to become a pro level bowler, and you got into the technique and you got in consistency and you got into all this whatever, you'd lose your edge. I think you'd fade.
I don't even know if I would need 30 days. I think 40 hours. I think a week of 8 hours, because I was there for like an hour, and and actual bowling time. Maybe 20 minutes, you know what I mean? Actual time that I'm walking, it's my turn, and I'm not, goofing around between games and going, getting food and all that or whatever, or socializing with people I ran into. I'm maybe 15, 20 minutes of actual bowling time. And within that 15, I'm talking about the time a ball is in my hand. It could be probably less, probably 10 minutes, probably less than that, like you're not, you give me 8 hours for one day. And I feel like,
you're going pro.
I'm competitive. I think a week I'm pro level. I think a month I'm one of the best in the country.
The good thing about bowling is, like, if you spent any period of your life where you went regularly, like I did one for summer camps, and every Thursday we'd go bowling, kind of a thing.
Oh, I thought you were saying you went to a bowling camp, like a...
No, like different, every day we had a different activity, it was at Rollins College. And so bowling was Thursdays. And so we all summer long, like bowled consistently. And I, as a kid, would remember getting, very, very good scores. And I felt very confident. I knew what I was doing with the ball. And then you don't play for 10 years and you go in college or you go whatever. And you still got the skip, like it's like riding a bike. You know what I mean? Well, but if you don't have that season of life where you get competent or get good, it's deeply embarrassing as an adult, like on a date or something where the guy needs the bumpers or something.
Yeah. But here's the thought that I had. Was when I was bowling, it's like, wow, I'm pretty good at this. I'm not to brag, but I think I'm one of the best bowlers here that just untapped, and I'm just raw. And I was thinking like how there's a bowling lane at the White House, right? And I was like, dude, if I was president, I'd have meetings down there. I'd be like, cabinet, come down. I'm going to be bowling. I'm going to absorb the global the weight of global events while I'm throwing some balls here.
You remember in 2001 that shot or that clip of George W. Bush addressing the bombing in Iraq, and it's and then but he's on the golf tee, and it's like he does this very serious thing, and then he just like goes, and then now watch this, and he turns and he whacks it, and like that's you bowling, that's you being president with bowling.
Yeah,
we're having cabinet meetings.
Listen, we're having the housing crisis has reached a fever pitch, and inflation is no longer tenable.
Yeah.
I got a 710 right now, boys. Let's see what I can do here. And then we'll figure, if I can figure this out, we can definitely figure out inflation.
It would inspire confidence. Like if you could do the 710 split, I'd be like, yeah, he can fix the economy.
And I would bring other world leaders. I wouldn't
to show dominance.
I'd be like, come to the White House and we do the dinner, and they would think they're coming for the big diplomatic dinner, right? And then I'm like, all right, be ready at 7:00. We're gonna get together. Little do they know, I take them down in the bowling lane, and we got a pizza and a pitcher down there, and we're like, this is what we're doing tonight, and just humiliate like the some other, president, and I don't have to do it on the battlefield. I don't have to do it in the economic back rooms. I do it old school on the bowling lane. Let them know what country's in charge here, because these colors don't run. And
I mean, if you saw There Will Be Blood, I mean, you can have a fight on a bowling lane and murder your opponent. I
hope it wouldn't come to that, but
but it's always an option.
I will do what it takes.
I'll drink your milkshake.
Now, wait, I do want to go back to when you were bowling with your family. Were you just like absolutely crushing your kids and destroying their confidence, or were they also doing well?
No, I was crushing. I mean,
here's the thing about their family. They're all pretty competitive. They play games, they play board games. Like Jesse does not encourage his children by throwing any of the competitive. He wants to teach them real world situations. Like
no participation trophies.
Not in this house.
I'll be honest, I was confirmed by these silent NBA recap documentaries of guys in the 90s. They were brutal. You should have seen Karl Malone laying these cats out. He didn't care. There was rookies on there like, oh, man. I mean, I couldn't tell what they were saying. Right. But their body language was like, these veterans did not treat me kindly. It was a different era, and I appreciated that.
They didn't even have subtitles? Like, that's so funny.
No, I didn't need them, though. I watched a lot of 90s basketball. Cameron was with me.
Yeah,
you could run it back, and you'd be like, okay.
I know exactly. Oh, I remember that segment.
It was great. It made me want to find where they were streaming this from. It was probably some weird licensing service that they use in bowling alleys that they just give them old sports stuff to play in the background. But when you see it on a 12-foot screen all night, it's like, I got to find where they,
Do you have, speaking of weird streaming channels, do you have a smart TV that has like those weird baked in off-brand channels with leftover shows?
I have one right in front of me right now.
Literally, I turn on this TV that I'm looking at that you guys are on right now. When I turn it on, the default Samsung channels thing is what loads before I flip it over to AirPlay. And Jesse, there are entire channels of early 2000s reality TV, i.e. the repo shows. Yeah. There's obviously the Mike Holmes home renovation shows. Yeah. There's The Exterminator show.
Exterminator.
It is an entire channel of nothing but back-to-back of those episodes. Good. It's great. I'm like, and it's free. I didn't know. Like, I'm going to start watching more early 2000s
and
reality.
There's really no reason for TVs to include those. They just slap them on there, and it's like, all right, why not? Just let it roll here.
I've watched some of the repo shows. Remember the Operation Repo where they would go repossess cars and stuff?
Most of them are staged.
Dude, that's the thing. Is like I'm sitting there watching it going, this is crazy. And then at the very end of the episode, they put the fine print that this was all a reenactment based on real actual cases. And then when you know that and you're watching it moving forward, it is some of the worst acting you've ever seen in your life. People getting outraged and grabbing a gun. And it's like, oh gosh, this is terrible. So I went from thinking it was hilarious to now hating it.
But I need you to keep watching it because I'm now very curious if anyone actually did get a legit acting start on like one of those reality shows that we just don't know.
Somebody we recognize now.
Yeah. Like sometimes I'll go back and watch shows from like the 2000s and like the most minor character in an episode, I'm like, oh, you're actually like a pretty big star now. Like, I don't know. Like I love seeing that. So I need to know if someone's on those repo shows.
Or what would be great is if, and I know he's like problematic now, but like back in the day, like at the height of like the Seth Rogen thing, James Franco, like he was making $200 million movies and did a stint on like General Hospital or some soap opera just for the fun of it. You know what I mean? Just because he could, and played it real serious. If like a legit actor, if like Sir Ian McKellen is like, no, I want to do a couple episodes of this Repo show. Let's just do this thing.
Sir Ian McKellen.
Sir Anthony Hopkins.
There's a Bear Grylls channel of just nothing but outdoor adventure stuff. I'm telling you, it was the highlight. It was great. It was a great era of cheap television. But
yeah, it really was. It's underappreciated, you know.
There was also a channel of that show where they tow people, like in Miami and stuff. They tow cars
Miami,
that are parked.
I believe it's Miami Tow.
Yeah. It was a whole channel of towing. Lots of drama in the towing community.
And it doesn't really matter if it's fake or not, because I remember at the time it was
there was a bounty hunter channel.
Yeah, there was a
Dog
lot
the
of
Bounty
like
Hunter?
Yeah. It was Doc. Yeah.
A lot of like old school cable channels were like changing hands at that time, like Court TV and History. Like they were all kind of like, and remember at the time there was like Spike TV and then True TV, and everyone was trying to find an identity. Like Spike was like TV
Man
for
stuff.
dudes. Yeah. And like True TV, I remember one time they tried something that was, it's not reality, it's actuality. And that's a very confusing slogan, but that was their way of basically telling the audience, like it was their plausible deniability of saying all of our shows are reality shows that are actual actors, you know? And they're like, we told you it's not reality. It's actuality. It was just their plausible deniability for that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the show today is better than those shows. Coming up later, we talk to Judah and Chelsea Smith from Churchome, longtime friends and change agents. That's what we talk about today. If you follow their ministry at all, you know that they are innovators and disruptors and embrace change. So we talk about that. Don't miss that. Also, at the end of the show, we have your feedback, but stay tuned. Right now, up next, it's Relevant Buzz. You're listening to Flower Boy. The song is Break My Fall. Well, today's show is brought to you in part by World Vision. We all subscribe to a lot of services that make our lives easier and more entertaining. But as followers of Jesus, we should want to seek first the kingdom of God in all areas of life, including our spending. That's why I'm so excited about a new kind of subscription through World Vision. Not one for myself, but for others. It's called Believers for World Change. And when you sign up, you're joining a community of change makers working to help end extreme poverty around the world and here at home. World Vision is a Christian humanitarian organization that works with children, families, and communities to reach their God-given potential, focusing on things like gender equality, spiritual nurture, and access to clean water, education, job training, and healthcare, so the entire picture of poverty can be addressed. Let's subscribe to something new together. Subscribe to World Change today at worldvision.org. Again, that's worldvision.org. Okay, it's time for
Relevant Buzz.
Tell us what's happening at the intersection of faith and culture this week, Emily.
Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is an interesting study that came out that I think we should all kind of be aware of. According to Gallup, there's been a really big surge in young women who identify as politically liberal. But it's like not just party identification. It's like their stances on things like the environment, abortion, gun laws, race relations. All of that has also become more liberal in like a pretty short amount of time.
I think we know. I mean, I think we would presume that young women are more liberal than young men. I mean, I think we could see that dichotomy. Are you saying the study is showing there's a big increase or something?
Yes, that's what like this one is specifically talking about. So Gallup has been doing this poll since about 2001. And so for the last 23 years, the percentage of women between the ages of 18 to 29 who identify as politically liberal rose from 28% to 40%, which is a big enough gap. But when you look at young men, like you mentioned, they're actually moving away from liberal views. So in 2001, 25% of young men were liberal. That peaked in the Obama era at about 27%. It's back down to 25% now. So there's like a 15% gap between young men and women these days.
I read in our piece that you published that like there were some stats that were even far higher for women on like maybe their views on certain issues being more liberal. Then 40% feels low to me. I would have thought it would be 60, 70% would identify as more
so
liberal.
that's like part of like women who are saying like I am like fully liberal, like they're like very comfortable identifying as liberal, because a lot of young people right now maybe don't fully like they're not fully behind
they
the
have some
liberal
centrist views mixed in with some liberal. Okay, gotcha. So this is 100% left on every issue.
Yes.
Okay.
40% of young women, 100% all in on it. But like you said, they do have issues that they're very, very liberal on. So some of those issues, or the biggest issue really, is the environment. So during the Obama era, it was about 66% of young women held a position that global warming was caused by pollution from human activity. That has jumped all the way up to 86%. So pretty much across the board, young women think like they have a very liberal view on environment.
Well, what's an interesting correlative headline that I actually just read this headline yesterday. I did not do a deep dive into the story, but this is the headline from the New York Times. With Gen Z, men are now more religious than women. And it is, basically looking at the stats were church attendance, frequency of reading the Bible, and kind of measurable behaviors like that, where that is a turn as well, where generally in the young population, women registered higher, but in Gen Z, it is now shifted. Now, I'm not saying there is a causal relationship between politics and religious beliefs. I think there's probably a lot to unpack, including rhetoric in the political realm, that there's a lot of misogyny that has objectively been interjected into political conversations. But correlative, like I'm saying, they're not related, but they're somewhat, correlated because it's within the same demographic group. Gen Z, according to this study from the New York Times, men are now more religious than women. It would be interesting for some social scientists to kind of find out how those are related or unrelated,
So I was actually going to bring that up as my next buzz piece, because we did see that going around. I did look into it. The reason we didn't cover it on the site is because there was a couple issues we had with it. There was
it's really, really weak data for them to have such a big proclamation.
They did talk with a few, they interviewed a lot of people from two churches in Waco, Texas, Grace Church and Hope Church. These are small to mid-sized Baptist churches. They describe them as pretty average, but they the reason that they were talked about was because their pastors were saying more young men are joining the church. Well, you look at it and it's like they've had 12 young men join the church. Like it was like, this isn't
it's
really
a very small sample size. And we know Baptist churches are far more conservative than other churches. And so young women might be going to a non-denom church in that city, whereas a young man is more drawn to the Baptist patriarchy theology than young women are. So the fact that the New York Times didn't understand enough about the church world to know how to study a cross section. They just studied a couple of little case studies of Baptist churches in Texas. It's like, sure, at those churches, 12 more guys than girls joined the membership this year. That is not a national trend. Right. Go to any church and eyeball the crowd and tell me that there's more men than women.
But even part of like the and I guess this is just kind of a sign of the times we live in too. But like some of the issues you were describing, Emily, are affiliated with more kind of left leaning political movements, right? But there's nothing objectively liberal versus conservative about environmentalism. Like if you were just to look at it in a vacuum, and look at sort of the tenets of those political ideologies, there's nothing other than one side has happened to co-opt it more strongly than the other, or that would make that issue like, what I'm saying? Just in a vacuum, there's nothing politically social, politically liberal or politically conservative about caring for the environment and seeing, man-made impact on it. It just so happens that like one party has been a more strong advocate of intervention to try to prevent that harm. And that's the other thing too. It's just like how we even define these parties and ideologies has expanded to things that have nothing to do with the real cores of those ideologies. It's just which party has made it their issue,
Right. Yeah, the two-party system of 50 years ago doesn't exist anymore. A sense of like small government, lower taxes, lower spending, lower social programs versus more government, safety net and investment in social programs. I mean, those basically essentially the long-term conservative versus more liberal. Is more of a fiscal conservative versus fiscal liberal. And then in the last 50 years, they've cherry picked social issues to just add on to their platform,
Yeah. Well, I think about this all the time. Like if Dan Quayle had been the one that got really interested in core ice samples and carbon levels as you go further down, and instead of Al Gore, right? Like, right. Because there was nothing that was, directly tied to his political party. He just got very interested in that, like early on. And if it had been someone that was, associated with the political right instead of the political left, would it be a different? Because there's, like I said, there's nothing objectively liberal or conservative about that,
If Dan Quayle was the one who wrote An Inconvenient Truth, it would be riddled with typos because inconvenient is a hard word to spell.
Not unfair, but you get my point though. Like, it's like this is all traced back to the person that kind of championed it happened to be on one side. Because I remember back in the day, this is, you can probably find this on YouTube. But for just people interested in weird evangelical history, and the 700 Club was one of the first people to have Al Gore on to talk about these core ice samples and man-made climate change. Because at the time, there was nothing overtly political seen about it. The 700 Club was one of the first news outlets to have Al Gore on to talk about his. That's
crazy.
This is like a decade.
Christians to be a good steward of God's creation. Yes. You would think environmentalism would be a Christian issue.
Yeah. This is probably 15 years before An Inconvenient Truth, right? This is at the sort of the genesis of his concern here. But my point is not, to endorse either of those figures. It's to say there was a time where these issues weren't seen as overtly political,
or liberal or conservative. Yeah. It was just true
partisan.
Or not
they
true.
weren't seen as partisan.
Partisan, right? Yeah.
Now I actually do want to move on to something that I'm really excited to talk about. There's been, I don't know the last time you guys have gone to the movie theaters, but depending on where you're at, sometimes those theaters are just really struggling, especially since COVID and streaming services took off.
People don't want to stick their fingers into dirty holes. I mean, that's really the problem with
that really is
society.
It. Yeah, that's we solved the problem for movie theaters.
I don't want to go to a place where the armrest is sticky. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened before I got here.
That's valid. And you know what? I want you to know.
It's a big concern.
I want you to know that the National Association of Theater Owners hears you, because they announced this week that they're going to be investing more than $2.2 billion over the next 3 years to modernize its properties. Now, part of that means maybe cleaning up some of the sticky floors, getting new seats, better sound system, better snacks. But there's also talks that it could add in more family entertainment options like bowling, arcades, zip lines, and pickleball courts.
Pickleball courts at a movie theater?
Yes. There's already a theater in Texas.
Wait, tell me, because I'm confused where pickleball would go.
There's already a theater in Texas that they have a pickleball court. It's attached to the kind of facility, whatever. Think basically like a Dave and Buster's, and it's everything like that. But then there also happens to be a movie theater.
In it.
I have a pickleball take, and it's going to ruffle some feathers. Oh. Pickleball is racquetball for the weak-minded. I'll say it again.
Say it.
Pickleball is just racquetball for the weak-minded. You step in a racquetball court. There's a blue hard rubber ball whizzing around. Okay, you're trapped in a claustrophobic cube, and it is this intense mano a mano. Yeah. Cameron, I know you've played a lot of racquetball because I know your father is actually a racquetball savant.
My dad, dude, no, my dad, he's in his 70s now, so he can't, but he built Emily. They built their offices for their company. He built a racquetball court when they built the offices. So he could, and then Jesse, to your thing about the bowling as a president, he would have business associates and employees play him in racquetball just so he could have dominance over them. Like, it was the weirdest
It's
dynamic.
a baller move.
But listen, he's so good. But like when I was like 8, he wanted to get the whole, like it'd be fun for the family to go play racquetball, right? So my mom, my dad, and me, and I'm 8, we go play racquetball. And we're just putting around on the court, you know, and whatever. But my dad's wanting to show me that he's really good. He's wanting to show off to his son. And I, at 8, like scored a few points on him. Like I scored a few points. And I didn't know if he was like not playing up to his level or whatever. He was just trying to let me have a good time. Anyway, he didn't like that I scored a few points. So on the next hit, he wanted to show me what a real hit looks like. And he whacked it so hard. I remember seeing the blue ball coming straight for my head at a speed like a bullet. And the next thing I hear is next thing I feel is the ground is getting closer and closer. And in the distance, I hear my mom screaming, Steve, what did you do? And then I don't know what happened after that. He knocked me out. And we never played as a family again.
This is making so many things click for me right now.
You know what sport does not. You know what sport does not offer? The existential risk of a traumatic brain injury administered at the hands of your own father? Pickleball. It's safe. It's easy. No, when I step on the racquetball court, whether I'm with a member of my family or some stranger at the rec center, I know one of us may be walking out of there on a stretcher. It's not happening in pickleball.
Somebody might fly through a glass wall. You know, you just don't know. You just don't know.
Hey, racquetball, it's literally a situation where I'd probably say 30% of the time, 2 enter, 1 leave. Okay? Like, no one's leaving the pickleball court in a body bag. I guarantee you there's multiple deaths a year in racquetball. I guarantee. I don't know the stats. I don't know if anyone's tracking it.
We don't need them. We just know.
It's probably better we not know. But you're telling me there aren't some horrific racquetball accidents yearly? They ain't happen in pickleball. This is for the weak-minded. Okay?
I agree. So back to what she was saying. This is the funny thing to me that like movie theaters are so desperate that they're trying to figure out what to do to attract people. And it's like, here's come for all the things that aren't movies and stay for movie. Here's my solution for not adding zip lines to movie theaters. Hear me out. Now, granted, I have a bias because I live in Orlando, but if movie theaters treated the patrons the way that theme parks treat you after you get off a ride. You get off a themed ride, and what do? You walk through a gift shop on your way out. If I just went to the movie theater and saw Minions, and I'm walking out, and in the lobby there was merchandise and a gift shop, you're stopping. You're getting the exclusive backpack. You're getting the Minion plush for your kid. You're spending so much more money at the movie theater. I don't understand why movie theaters have these huge empty lobbies and they haven't turned them into gift shops.
I mean,
why not?
That's how sports teams make money.
Right.
You know?
Like, it makes no sense to me. I mean, the theaters make more money. The licensing of the studios make more money to the fans of that Marvel franchise, Barbie. If you're walking out of Barbie last year, Emily, and there was like all this like exclusive Barbie merch that you can't get anywhere else, you would have gotten something.
Well, that's what we were talking about it the other day. Like the closest anyone's gotten to that is AMC will do like specialized popcorn buckets for different movies.
Not enough.
Not enough. But you see, like for some of those movies, like people are like really crazy about them and are like, oh, I need to get the Dune popcorn bucket. And it's like, what if we actually just had different merch that wasn't this weird looking popcorn bucket?
Yeah. You don't need a zip line. Just give me a gift shop. That's all.
Well, I mean, look at there's a famous old Banksy documentary that the whole idea is to look at the uncomfortable but necessary relationship between commerce and art. And the title of the documentary is Exit Through the Gift Shop. Like literally go experience the art. But when you leave, you exit through the gift shop because something's got to fund this. Like,
and the theaters, the lobbies are so dead. They're sad. They have a couple like broken arcade games in the corner. They have that second concession stand that's never open. You know, it's like, it's just sad. Turn that into a gift shop and like let me spend more money.
Put a zip line in there. And then as soon as I read this, I obviously imagined the Tim Robinson skit from I Think You Should Leave, where he just goes on that dating show to do the zip line. I'm imagining like grown men dropping their kids off to like go watch whatever Minion movie, and then they're just spending hours on the zip line.
He's too hard on the rope. Shut up, Mike.
All right. Well, that'll do it for Ellen Buzz. Look at us. We fixed the social fabric of America, go more bowling. We fixed the movie theater experience. Man, look at us.
And we hardened the next generation of Americans by abandoning the weak-minded sport of pickleball for the legitimate danger of racquetball.
Did you see? We just published this yesterday, but they announced that they're doing a movie called The Dink about pickleball with Ben Stiller, Jake Johnson from New Girl. If they're making fun of it, if they're doing a dodgeball-esque movie about pickleball, I could get down.
Dodgeball works because dodgeball is fun to watch. I watched professional pickleball one day on TV, and it was the most boring.
Yeah.
There's no way to make it cool.
It's more fun watching ping pong. I mean, it really is more. Ping pong is way more exhilarating to watch.
There's no way to make pickleball cool. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I am anti pickleball.
That'll do it for Relevant Buzz. Make sure to check out relevantmagazine.com every day, where we're covering the intersection of faith, culture, and everything in between. Thanks, Emily. All right, stay tuned. Up next, Judah and Chelsea Smith join us.
Be fruitful with your mind or bricklaying. To our fathers, Hail Marys, then abuses, but God chooses and introduces us to be healed, be new, behold. The Lord who takes the broken man and says, behold. Love him with your heart, mind, strength, and soul. Build up the brothers from the young to old. Be known.
Head, heart, hands, soul. Be healed, be new, be known. Live and be whole.
You're listening to Show Baraka. The song is B. Today's podcast is brought to you in part by Worth, a one-day worship and theology conference hosted by Matt Redman and featuring top theologians and songwriters at Wheaton College in Illinois on October 26th. Worship leaders and songwriters will be inspired to fight for biblical, relevant, and poetic worship during the seminars. Following the conference will be a night of worship with some of the best songwriters of the church, including Matt, Leland, Charity Gale, and more. You don't want to miss this event. Get your tickets now at worthworship.com. Today's podcast is also brought to you in part by the new book, Counting Miracles. One miracle might change 3 lives forever. From Nicholas Sparks, author of A Walk to Remember and The Notebook, Counting Miracles is an emotional novel about second chances. It follows Tanner, a former Army Ranger searching for his father, Caitlin, a doctor balancing work and family, and Jasper, an elderly man facing personal tragedy. As their paths cross, none expect a miracle, but it may change their futures forever. A story of redemption and belonging, Counting Miracles is available wherever books are sold. Well, our guests today are pastors Judah and Chelsea Smith. They're the leaders of churchome in Seattle and LA, and they're known for doing things differently. If you follow Judah on socials, you know he's been pushing pastors to shake things up in their churches for quite a while now. So we talked to them about why they're so passionate about change and how all Christians can benefit from embracing something new. Here's our conversation with Judah and Chelsea Smith.
You know, when I look at the churches in America today, churchome is definitely one of the more unique ones out there. And I know that you guys have been changing things up a lot over the last several years. I'm curious, how did you decide which direction you wanted to take the church?
As much as I respect and honor all the different methods and approaches and in some cases traditions and habits and things have become incredibly comfortable and have become almost synonymous with the institution. A 35, 45-minute sermon, a 6-song set, all these things that we become so used to. I think, Emily, if we're not careful, we associate them and assume that these things are steeped in very distinct and descriptive New Testament teaching and training, when in reality, a lot of these things that we do are great. They are the best take that we've had so far on what we believe to see in Scripture. But things like sharing meals together, where did that start to fade in our teaching and forgiving people and loving your neighbor and space and margin and rest? How did does that make sense? But in the process of conferences, retreats, advances, church services, multiple locations, website, app, brand, merch, sales, attendance, giving, budget, all that stuff is not inherently wrong at all. But is that everything? Is there more to this? Giving money, pooling resources together, taking care of each other, making sure we have food, making sure our bills are paid, making sure these sharing money was a massive part of the first Christians. And I don't mean giving in a bucket. I mean just sharing with each other. Hey, bro, get them on. We'll take care of you. Spontaneous bill paying, if you will. Like, these are things that are in there, but just aren't a part of. So I just think we have some rethinking to do, as we do in every successive generation, every successive era. We have some reevaluation that needs to be done, and that's okay. And by the way, it doesn't mean that
it was wrong,
that everything's wrong, or you throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think you keep the baby and you get some new water, and the baby's Jesus. And the water sometimes are our methods, procedures, and approaches, and constructs and structures. And so Chelsea and I are just the crazy West Coast couple who are just like, actually probably wearing a hat in church probably isn't a big deal. And I think if you do a little treatment on the scripture, you realize what was going on, and the temple prostitutes and the women who got out of prostitution were trying to grow their hair back, but the hair doesn't grow very fast. So Paul's like, tell all the ladies to wear head coverings and tell them it's important, because he wanted to protect the former prostitutes who used to serve at the temple. And he didn't want women who are coming to the church to be clearly and overtly and obviously, he wanted all the women. So he's like, tell the women they have to wear head coverings. This is super important. But stuff like that just gets lost in translation, Emily. And over a process of time, you got brand new people walking into your church community, and the person at the door says they got to take their hat off or they're not welcome. And all of the sudden, who we really are and what we're all about starts to crumble for that person. And Chelsea and I just want to be the couple that's just like, hey, let's kind of not just let all of this status quo just exist. Let's challenge it, question it, and how can we do better so that all the kids can come to Dad's house and all the kids are of same value and all the kids are of same importance to the Father, and how can we do that? And so all this is but a vapor, and it's going to be gone today, and eternity will be upon us, and that is forever. And so Chelsea and I are the couple that are we don't want to get so well adjusted to this place down here that we end up kind of dying on the hill of the blue party or the red party or the procedures and processes that each party wants to do. Guess what? No party in this country is going to fix this country. I honor both parties, encourage people to vote, but I must admit, in 2023, as far as Judah and Chelsea Smith are concerned, our hope is entirely and completely around the endless, relentless love revealed to us in the person of Jesus. And that is our passion. And so we don't intend to make light of this life, because boy, is it weighty and real. But it is a vapor. It is fickle. It is fading. And before we know it, we'll all be home in eternity, which is, we are eternal beings intended for an eternal experience. And we persist down here with this temporary, fleeting, flighty experience, which I think can almost overwhelm us and make us feel this is the end all be all, but it's not. And I'm just committed, man. I do whatever it takes. There's been dudes that carry real crosses from coast to coast in this country to let people know. And I guess in a way, Chelsea and I are kind of that crazy couple that are just like, man, we're going to do whatever it takes to tell the world. And we see culture creators and people of incredible influence who have the same passion, and that's exciting to aid incredible men and women who have influence as well, and help them get the message out of Jesus.
Yep.
You're talking about doing new things and changing things up. And I think as young people, we're excited about that. But in my experience, the older generation can be a little bit hesitant to it. Are you nervous at all about what that generational divide means for the future of the church?
Would you say that?
I mean, first of all, yeah, as we said earlier, completely understand people who want to do church in a traditional way. And we'd say, keep doing that. Just let us do it the way we want to do it.
Honestly.
I think one of the beauties of the church is in bringing generations together, and Titus talked about that, specifically to women. Hey, older women, teach the younger women. And so we are not giving up on that idea. I think there's a part of us that will fight for a multi-generational church because there is beauty, and young people need to learn from old people. Old people need to learn from young people. Like, God put us in families for a reason, and families are multi-generational. And so we really would love to continue to see that happen and grow. We have faith for it. Don't necessarily. And I mean, even like Judah's, it's interesting though. Older people who've been in the church, who are of an older generation, very much want their tradition. But there's hundreds and thousands and millions upon millions of people in this country and all over the world who are of an older generation, who have not had a church experience, who don't have preconceived ideas for what they expect church to be. And they can just come to church home and do a daily guided prayer, weekly service with friends, and just come to the community without any of that traditional expectation. And even like Judah's friends, they're doing great with it. So maybe we'll get the multi-generational beauty and strength that way.
And I'll just add this. I definitely think the prophecy is true, that part of the phenomenon that will happen in church is that old men will dream dreams and young men will see visions, which means this phenomenon will happen within the church. And it has happened, and it will continue to happen. And that is, you get old people dreaming again. Life has a way of driving out the dreaming. But, as you get older, you dream less. But there's this phenomenon that happens in this spiritual community called the church where old people want to dream again. And then young people, what are they prone to? Well, they're prone to just living in the moment, just living for the moment and not seeing past the moment and not seeing visions of the future and what's possible. So I think the phenomenon that happens when Jesus is central and Jesus is the focal point is you get old people dreaming again, and you get young people living past the moment, living past the weekend, and they start seeing visions of what could be possible with the duration of their stay here on earth. And I think you have something very, very special in your hands. Each successive generation has a responsibility to the text, a responsibility to the book, a responsibility to the story. And what each successive generation does with the greatest story ever told, which is the story of Jesus, is very interesting. I predict that our generation will tell the story in so many different forms, maybe more than any generation before us. We're already the metaphor, the illustrations, the movies that are coming out, the shows that are coming out, and Chelsea and I are part of that as well. We want to get involved more in productions and movies and shows, and to help tell the story, in some cases in a sneaky way, where people don't even know that they're hearing the story of redemption and forgiveness, which is almost exclusively the story of Jesus. So it's exciting, but are there hurdles? There always is with each successive generation.
And there's one other thing I have to say before we move on, and that is that one of the most significant groups of people in church home to Judah and I is a group of about a dozen men and women who are now probably mostly in their 70s, 80s. I think there's one group maybe still in their 60s, who pray for us every week. Every time we gather together, we're on a text chain with them. My dad was in the hospital with COVID. I immediately text them and get prayers in return. And I love the beauty and the strength and the significance that group of people adds. And so I am grateful that we are part of a church that has a multi-generational heritage, and really amazed at the people who are a little bit older who have stuck along for the ride with us and who have really responded in a spiritual way. And this group of a dozen people are just, I mean, they're Jesus with skin on for sure. They have so much value and weight to the church.
That was Judah and Chelsea Smith. Follow them on socials. Check out their podcast. They have a lot going on. All right, stay tuned. Up next, it's your feedback.
Every day and night I can't let go. Man, I'm never the same. That's 100 miles an hour on a dirt road running away. So come a little closer. There's something I could tell you. You were such a roller coaster.
You're listening to Bleachers. The song is Roller Coaster.
Hi, my name is Peter, and I'm a prophet in the new novel, American Prophet. I was the one who dreamed about the natural disaster just before it happened. Oh, and the pandemic. And that crazy election. And don't get me wrong, I'm not bragging. It's not like I asked for the job. Actually, no one would ask for this job. At least half the people will hate whatever I say, and almost everyone thinks I'm a little crazy. Getting a date is next to impossible. I've got a radio host who is making up conspiracies about me, a dude actually shooting at me, and an unhinged president threatening me. But the job isn't all that bad. I've gotten to see the country and meet some really interesting people and hopefully do some good along the way. You can find my story on Amazon, Audible, or iTunes. Just look for American Prophet by Jeff Fulmer. That's American Prophet by Jeff Fulmer.
All right, it's time for your feedback. Here's the deal, though. Last week, we didn't have any feedback because I told you that this week things on the show were changing. Here's me for 20 years now announcing stuff before we're ready to announce it. So okay, let me just tell y'all real quick, real brief what we're doing. So our plan was that this week we would transition to a video experience for the podcast. A couple curveballs happened. Plan A rarely works out. We are still doing that. It's just a few weeks, maybe it's a November thing now. So we are launching on our YouTube channel a video of the cast recordings and the interviews and all the stuff for you guys to experience this show in a different way. That is coming. We just want to launch well. We want to launch right, and it wasn't quite ready for prime time, and we are going to get it there. So we're excited about that. But we're going to continue doing 2 shows a week until that transition, and we'll keep you guys in the loop. We're also launching a new daily podcast show as well. So lots of stuff happening, and we will tell you all about it in the coming weeks. But anyway, that's why we didn't do a question of the week last week, is we thought the updated show format would be rolling out today. But yeah, great plans, but didn't happen. So sorry about that. Anyway, so let's do a question of the week for next week, right? All right, it's time for
Editorial question of the week. Hey.
All right. Well, we were talking earlier about movie theaters trying outside the box thinking to try and reinvigorate the movie theater experience by adding zip lines and pickleball courts, and it's ridiculous. Anyway, we want to know from you what do you think you should add to movie theaters to update them for the 21st century?
And it doesn't need to be updated. It can be rolling back. I was at a birthday party. Someone did like a retro for their 40th birthday party that I went to at a roller skating rink. You know?
Oh yeah.
Dude, it was like a blast from the past. If they were playing a movie the whole time, that would level that experience up, you know, because a lot of times you got nothing to look at when you're roller skating. You're just going in a circle, which when you think about it, it's not, you know,
Not that fun.
It's another one of those things about 10 minutes. You're like, okay, I got it. If they had a movie playing, whole different thing. If I'm watching, you know, the new Jurassic World while I'm doing laps, pretty entertaining. I get a little workout in.
I think roller rinks should come back, but I think they should be updated. You know how, like, you know, back in the retro days, there was like mini golf courses, but now we have like huge pirate themed mountain golf courses and stuff like that. What if we took that kind of an approach to reinvigorate roller rinks? Like, yeah, you have your circle, but you have like a trail or obstacle type thing of hills and dips and turns that you could go on as well. I don't know. Like, I feel like we could take fresh eyes to the roller rink experience as well.
I was thinking, ironically, you say that. I was thinking the same thing, and I got 2 words: ramps and tubes. Okay?
Exactly.
You're tubing. You're going through tubes. Little ramp, no jumps. I'm not getting crazy. I'm saying ramps.
Yeah, we don't
and
want
tubes.
broken arms here.
Ramps and tubes.
I really feel like you guys are just rebuilding 2000s malls. Like, I'm thinking about the mall I grew up in. It had an ice skating rink, and then it also had gift shops, like we're talking about with the movie theaters, and an actual movie theater. Like, all these things you're talking about, it's just the mall experience. You guys are yearning for the 2000s malls.
I'll be honest, this is totally different. There's no Claire's, there's no hand lotion booths. There's nothing that plagued those malls. This is, last time I checked, those malls didn't have any ramps and no tubes, and no one had wheels on their feet.
Jesse, do you remember when you were down here one time? We went and rode those electric golf carts and the indoor golf carts. It was Andretti's, right? That we went to.
Yeah, it was
Mario
awesome.
Andretti's place.
Yeah.
and we're hanging out. We're waiting for our turn. I mean, it's like, you got to wear the gear and the onesie and the helmets and all that stuff. And we're like standing there waiting, and there's like people at a bar. There's people playing arcade games, and then like people ziplining over your head, and like it's the craziest. But like those are everywhere now. Like it's like that used to be like a Dave and Buster's. Like you'd go out of your way to go to them. Now like literally like the empty Sears at your local mall has turned into those places.
Yeah, there's an Andretti's in my hometown now.
Should.
So maybe we're onto something. Maybe it's happening right before our eyes. We didn't realize it.
Yeah. Clearly, yeah.
All right. Well, so hit us up on X at Relevant Podcast and tell us your ideas of what movie theaters should add to the experience to make it more fun. There you go.
But more importantly, 4 people have died playing racquetball. And I just want y'all to...
4 people ever or per year?
4 people
per game.
Since 2002, it says 4 people died.
I guarantee, I am certain that number is far. How do you
underreported?
Well, okay.
You're not going to report like I died from racquetball, so like it's
the coroner's
embarrassing.
Not like another racquetball death. Yeah, death by racquetball.
I think it's also like
I'm saying heart attacks, heat strokes alone could probably claim dozens of lives. Because
I don't think it's counting heart attacks. This is one instance. A woman struck her husband in the side with the ball, and he had no idea that the strike had actually ruptured his spleen. Because it was so bad.
So you're talking about I mean, there's so many racquetball deaths. There's a whole category of racquetball deaths of people who didn't even know they were dying. That's how dangerous this sport is. You get
internal bleeding that you didn't know about, and you die a week later.
Yeah, no, they kept playing. Yeah, it says
a fatal injury and not even know it. That's how dangerous this game is.
No, yeah, he got hit and he didn't know it ruptured his spleen because he kept playing, and then a short time later he hemorrhaged to death.
You know what athletes aren't dying by mysterious circumstance. It's like racquetball can curse you. It can literally come back later and kill you just because you dared to play it. You know what that happened to? Pickleball. They're fine.
One time in college, I came home from college and my dad was wanting to play racquetball, because I refused to play him all during high school and stuff. But when I was in college, I signed up for the intramural racquetball team, Jesse, and we won the championship. So I was like, maybe it's in my blood. I'm naturally pretty good at racquetball. So I tell my dad we won the intramural championship. And he's like, when I got home, he's like, let's go play. Now that you like playing, let's play, And we played and I beat him first game. You're supposed to play, best out of 3. I beat him first game, set my racket down, thanked him for his time, never played him again. I went out as champ. I beat my dad one time and I've never played him since. So undefeated.
So it looks like there haven't been any deaths by pickleball, but it does say 87% of all pickleball related injury incidents that required an emergency room visit happened to participants older than 50. So,
well, duh.
Well,
they broke a hip.
Be a correlation there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, many thanks to Judah and Chelsea Smith for joining us today. Make sure to check out their podcast. It's called In Good Faith. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. Also, make sure to check out the churchome app and follow them on the socials. They are awesome people. All right. Also, make sure to follow Relevant on the socials to make sure that you keep up with everything we've got going on. Like I said, we have some big changes, big announcements, some new things launching in the next month-ish. You don't want to miss out on. You can also, at our website, sign up for our free daily newsletter where we send you our top 5 trending stories and nothing else. It's called Relevant Today, and you can sign up right there at relevantmagazine.com. All right. On that note, we'll wrap it. I'm Cameron Strang.
I'm Jesse Carey.
I'm Emily Brown.
We'll see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay safe if you're in the path of the hurricane.
Thanks for listening to the Relevant Podcast. Check out our features, interviews, and news updates every day at relevantmagazine.com. And make sure to follow Relevant on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest. For more great podcasts, browse the shows on the Relevant Podcast Network, which you can find at our site. And while you're there, don't miss the all-new era of Relevant Magazine. A new issue releases every other month at relevantmagazine.com.
Pickleball is just racquetball for the weak-minded.
Relevant Podcast Network.